tell you what, the camera does put a little weight on you.
What are you saying?
Not you, me. We were down at the beach in anniversary week, and most every day, ice cream came into the picture at some time or another. It was usually later in the day. Now it's actually after dinner, and then probably around 10 o'clock at night again. And it wasn't just a little bit, usually a pint.
It wasn't just a little bit.
No, I mean, it's, there's a place called Springer's down there, and I availed myself of that almost every day. So 5 pounds later,
Well,
what are you going to do?
I bought my first half gallon of ice cream in more than a year on Friday.
Kidding. What
No.
kind? What was your flavor?
I don't even know. I was on anesthesia.
Listeners, we won't tell you why he was on anesthesia.
And we won't admit the fact that I drove there myself and picked it up.
Oh, well, that's good. You deserved it after.
It was chocolate something or other, and I was walking down the aisle, and that's what grabbed my attention.
Well,
So I don't feel bad. I mean,
Yeah.
It was the first one in a year. So
well, that's pretty good.
Welcome to the Embracing Brokenness Podcast, where our goal is to engage with all of those willing to venture deeper into their transformational journey with Christ. Here's your host and co-founder of Embracing Brokenness Ministries, Steve Adams.
Well, welcome everyone to the Embracing Brokenness Podcast. I have with me today a longtime friend, but also an ally of the ministry. And we have done this a few times, haven't we? Yeah, we sure did. And I'm really looking forward to it this time because, look around, this is the first podcast we've recorded, not only in person with somebody else in the space, but in this new studio. Cool, right? So I am thankful for all of you who have supported this ministry to make this happen. So today, Michael, welcome. Good to have you.
It's great to be here.
Yeah.
Excited about it.
Well, we have a topic, which is not new, that we've
No.
conversed on in the past. But what's new about it, and for any of you who haven't seen this or read it, I invited Mike to write an article for us, and he entitled it, Answer the Door. So go and look for that on our blog, on the website, or social media. And one of the things that we have talked about so many times, of course, not only the name of our ministry and being Embracing Brokenness Ministry, but the journey that we're all on, this transformational journey in Christ that looks different for almost everybody. And you had a bit of an experience, and I think it's appropriate for you to kind of give us the big picture of even why we're talking today, because this was significant to you. Answer the door, right?
Answer the door. Yeah. It's probably not perfect English,
Okay.
the title of it. But as I was thinking about how do we title this article, that was the first thing that popped into my mind when you think of my parents. When someone was knocking on the door when you're little, they yell from somewhere on the other side of the building, "Answer the door!"
Oh, that's good. I like that. Yeah, and of course you gave me an image, which was a door. Gee, surprising, right? Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is. I just want to start by saying that the spirit behind the writing of this article and what I would like to bring into tonight, first and foremost, is just gratitude and a sense of gratitude and awe and thankfulness for the work that God is doing in all of our lives, specifically in the event that unfolded the night that I wrote about for this blog article. It just blows my mind continually, the work that God does, his relentless pursuit of us, his children, who he loves, who he desires wholeness for.
Yeah.
He wants 100% of our heart. He wants 100% of our restoration and our wholeness.
He does. And you the verse, one of our favorites, both of us, I think, in 2 Corinthians 3:18. So I'll prompt you a little bit here. And we all, with unveiled face, beholding the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. Yeah,
Bit by bit, layer by layer.
Bit by bit.
Yeah.
So open us up with a little bit of insight into what your experience has been like lately in life, but then also what drew you to have this conversation first.
Well, as some of your readers and listeners might know, if you've read any of my content, It is the last 5 years or so has been a pretty intense healing journey, post traumatic divorce experience, and that is a perfect time to knock the building down and rebuild. You know, so I've made myself available as much as possible to what Holy Spirit wants to do, and what Jesus wants to do in this season. So that has been the focus, and it has been, alluding to the scripture we just referenced, it has been layer upon layer, one step at a time, degree by degree, we get there. In conversations with the Father and I, he calls it the climb. We refer to it as the climb.
I like that. We talk a lot about layers of the onion around here too, and peeling that back and getting closer to the center.
Yeah. So that's just another analogy.
Yeah, exactly. The climb.
Yeah, the climbing, and we're going to have a marvelous climb. So let's say maybe this is another layer, another rung on the ladder.
Yeah, there you go.
Another layer, another level of the climb. Yeah. So this particular what prompted this was an experience I had a couple of months ago, unexpected, on every level, unexpected.
Yeah.
When you first have a traumatic experience, you have a lot of sleepless nights.
Yeah.
And there was a season where I wasn't sleeping at all, and had a lot of things to work out. But that had been quite some time. There had been quite some time since then, I should say.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of months ago, I had one of those nights, and just overwhelmed with grief and condemnation, and found myself. I actually woke up repenting. I woke up in just this. I don't know what I was dreaming about or what brought that on, but I woke up in this state of absolute abject grief and repentance.
So there's two things when you say that come to mind. Number one, there is a spiritual battle that's raging all around us that we can't see. Every one of you out there, I'm sure, has experienced something that are believers in that context. But there's also that side I think of when you bring up something like that. Maybe you're going to go here, but I think of Job, and we think of what God allowed to occur, almost as a way of not. In some ways, it was proving his faithfulness, but it also uncovered some things as we even read further that Job realized about who God is and his sovereignty, right? So what category would you put that in, or would you put it in both? I mean, do you feel like it was warfare, but do you feel like there was something beneficial that came through this?
Well, I'm of the opinion that God uses all of that for his good, whether it's warfare, whether it's something else. It's all an opportunity for him to bring about something that he wants.
Yeah.
So I don't know what brought it about. I always just give him the credit. So
good.
I don't know who started this, but
you know who's going to finish it.
I know who's going to finish
exactly.
it, and I know that. So I just say, hey, there was something got stirred up, and I say he stirred it up.
Yeah.
Whether he did or not, he finished it, and so I know all of these situations that happen, these episodes, and I think that's how. Either he brings about the stirring, or in the natural course of life, there's a stirring, and there's something surfaces, something rises to the surface in us, and that's when he takes advantage. That's the opportunity. Whether it's an outside influence, an attack of the enemy, or just life.
So rungs on the ladder, layers of the onion, happen.
Yeah.
They just happen.
Yeah, the opportunity arises. The opportunity for healing. The opportunity for change. It's the opportunity to address something head on that has been an issue, because it's going to happen. It's good. There's whatever it is you're dealing with. It's going to come to a head.
Tell us more.
Well, so there's has been there's been a shame issue in my life that I've been struggling with for years, and as I mentioned in the article, it had been the source of which was elusive. Yeah. You could probably put your finger on any number of potential issues, but having addressed a lot of things over the last 5-6 years, we hadn't really come to the conclusion of that, because it just it just was always ever present. That's the backdrop.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have mattered. I have been in this, fully committed. It didn't matter. I would still go to church and feel less than. I would still show up here and feel less than. I would go to all, especially in the context of being with other men.
Okay.
And I guess a lot of other men feel that way.
Yes, they do.
But it was strong, and it was something that I had to fight all the time.
Well, when you and I first met, it was the table was turned, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was flip-flopped.
A
I
bit,
was the
a bit.
one
Yeah.
walking in shame. I was the one that had a traumatic experience. I was
Yeah.
the one in a similar fashion that you ended up in that same place. So was I. So I totally get it. And many of you that are watching or listening right now can probably relate to what Michael's talking about. Shame is a horrendous tool that the enemy uses all the time. It's never from God, because we are created in his image. That's not one of the attributes.
No.
And it certainly didn't exist when we walked around the garden in full harmony with him. So it's definitely a tactic, and it's one easy to latch onto, because, my gosh, we just do things randomly and for all the wrong reasons so often, and want to just blame ourselves for this horrendous thing called sin all the time. And we deserve some of it, but there is healing. There is that restoration piece that you're talking about. So tell us a little bit more. How did it go?
Well, I always believed that at some point we would arrive at the source.
Yeah.
One of the layers we would get to as we get closer. In my experience, it has been that the issues, as you get closer, you start peeling away the layers. You get closer and closer to the source.
It might be truth. Can I call it truth? Would that make sense? Do we believe lies, and sometimes we're trying to get to the truth?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, but I mean, it's when we're talking about internal issues of the heart.
Sure.
As you start peeling off surface layers, you're going to get to deeper issues.
No, that's true.
Yeah. And sometimes when you get closer to wounded and guarded areas, it's not always easy to see.
Right.
Whether it's deception or whether it's just that's how we're wired to self-protect sometimes, where we just can't or won't see certain things.
Yeah.
That was part of what happened this particular night. In the middle of this, I was in tears. I was grieving, and there was there wasn't, typically there wasn't a productive end to a night like this.
No.
In the past, it would just be expressing my feelings and ending up feeling the same at the end of it. And but this particular night, and why I called it Answer the Door, is because in the middle of this lament, if you will, there was a very strong knock, on in the place that I recognize it's coming from the Lord.
Wow.
And it made me stop. I paused and got quiet. And I know God has a sense of humor.
Well, no doubt.
Absolutely has a sense of humor.
He created us. Look at us. Get a real sense of humor.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah. Well, so I got quiet, and it clear as anything that I hear, "You gonna let me in? Is it just you gonna keep going on like this all night, or you gonna let me in?" And so,
wow. Well, let me pause. Let me just because there are people listening or watching right now who are probably asking themselves, "Wait, God said what? And how did you hear? Like, what?" I haven't experienced that hearing from God thing in some way. Not that we're on that entirely, but in the past, is there kind of a knowing? Like when you talk about him answering in that way, what made you sure that it was him?
Well, partially because of experience.
Okay.
Having been in this kind of communion for some time.
Okay.
I just know what it feels like. It's more of a feeling than a hearing. I mean, I'm not hearing voices.
Right.
It's not an audible thing. I hear people have had that experience.
Mm-hmm.
I have not. It's just an inner knowing.
Yes.
Based on my experience in prayer in times past, In that, in the initial stages of that, there's a lot of fleshing out of when you're learning how to hear that voice, that we call it a voice, but it's a feeling, the inner knower.
Yes. Holy Spirit, maybe?
Yeah, well, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah,
So,
and I use these, and I even address this in the article. I use all of these terms for God interchangeably, like the Lord, God, the Holy Spirit.
Right. Jesus. Yes,
So
it's the Trinity. We're talking about the Trinity.
Yeah, yeah. And who was speaking that night? I'm pretty sure it was Jesus, but call it what you want. It's God, right? They're all God.
Yes.
So
your response to that then?
To what?
To the hearing.
Oh, I said yes.
Oh,
Immediately. Yes, please. I invite you to come into this situation, because it really just, the knocking and the question pulled me out far enough out of the blathering, self-hatred or whatever it was, to get a bead on, like, so here we are, and he's wanting to come into the situation. I'm going to say yes, because I want to come out on the other side of this better for it. And it was just, there was an immediate peace. And then I just get quiet. I just get quiet at that point, because I want to know, I don't know, it probably didn't last very long.
Right.
But there was just a lot of information being downloaded.
Sure, all at one time. And that's what I love about the way God interacts with us. It's different for everyone. To some degree, it's different. And there are some traits with the way he communicates, especially with the Holy Spirit, and revealing or knowing, as you did. But that's an experience that isn't something that comes natural for a lot of people. So I think for many of us, it's an exercise in practicing God's presence. In hearing from him, it just simply means we need to sit quietly in his presence more often. It feels as if you were in a state of mind. You were in that sort of shame-oriented posture, and then you heard from him. It was almost as if he reached down in and just picked you up in a different way this time, didn't he? Than what he had in the past.
Yeah. And that is to me the most remarkable part of our relationship with God in general, is how committed he is to our restoration, our healing, our growth. He is a pursuer, a relentless pursuer.
He really is.
And I never knew that. Like, I didn't have that, in my long history of being a Christian and growing up in the church. That wasn't part of my everyday knowing of what God was like. Yeah. He is not a distant, aloof, non-interested, figure it out yourself God. He's not.
No, he isn't.
And so also often, especially someone with my makeup and where I've been, I fall into the trap of I have to figure it all out. That is still the impulse I struggle with the most, is I have to figure it all out. And no, I don't. No. I don't. What I need to learn is how to rest in the one who has it all figured out. He's the one who brings the answers. He's the healer. He's the all knower. I don't have to have my fact finder on all the time.
Yeah, there you go. Wow. And we talk about that a lot around here. Mike and I kid about our MO, we'd call it. Right? Yeah. I'm more of a quick start. Michael's a bit of a fact finder. He likes to know everything that he can about an issue before making a decision. But in this case, and that's what I love about God, because he doesn't always show up in the way we're used to him intervening in our life, and for me too, the same way. But he knows how you're wired. He created you. Mm-hmm. What was next? What came that following day? Like what came out of this for you, and how did that set you up for where you are even now?
Well, we don't always. There are pieces of this I don't understand fully, or I don't know how he does what he does. I just know what it feels like. Yeah. In those moments where I was just, when the peace settled, and I was just in a mode of listening, And one of the things that he had been talking about was, we're getting close to some core issues here in your heart, my heart. Yeah. And there's a wounded place that I hadn't fully given to him. I hadn't given him access to. And it wasn't conscious. It wasn't a deliberate decision. It was just a defense mechanism that I had been carrying around for as long as I can remember, probably. Okay. That we aren't going to go there. And he put his finger on that and said, "Can I have that? Wow. Will you give me access to that? Because in that, there's a piece of that you've formed your identity around, and there's some shame in there."
And we all have a that.
There's a that.
There's always a that.
Yeah.
And what I've learned over the years, and I feel like this healing journey, well, for both of us, has been an extended period of time now, but I'll think back about a pretty traumatic time when I was referring to earlier, which was a decade ago.
Yeah.
Crazy. That at that time is a lot different than what God puts his finger on now and points to and says, this is the area that I want to address today. And I feel like there's been a tremendous amount of growth over these last 10 years in my life. It's not quite the 80-20 rule, because I'm not sure I'm even 20% of the way there, but I feel like a lot of times I'm more like 80% further along than I was 10 years ago, at least put it that way. And it may only be 10% of the journey, right?
Yeah.
So folks, for any of you who are saying, well, how do I relate to this? God will open up pieces in your life that he wants to address at any given time, and they will be different, right? You've had that experience?
Yeah. And, we'll never arrive.
No.
We, I like to think of it, Jesus' work on the cross was a finished work. Absolutely. It is complete. He said, it is finished. Yeah. It was finished, and it was complete and forever and eternal. He is finished. I am not.
Great point.
So, it is all a measure until we are with him. So I like to say, I have it. I have a measure of it, and I will continue to have it. I'll have a better measure of it. So I am healed, and I am being healed. I am free. I am being free. And it will continue. This will forever continue.
Yeah, we have a fancy word for that called sanctification. The Bible calls it, we have another that we use around here oftentimes, spiritual formation. Mm-hmm. But it is the healing journey. It is a journey. I mean, there's places along this road that you feel sometimes you're stuck. And you've talked about shame in the past. I've experienced it because the enemy loves to continue to remind us of our failures. And so that experience that you had years ago and I had a decade ago felt a lot like a failure. Like I remember examining my life and going, okay, so what was that last 40 years really about? Like in relationship, something completely got sidelined in a commitment that I made, and I don't understand it. But what I did know at that time is that there was only one answer to my question, and that is to put it before the Lord. Like we all have options. Yeah. As to how we address the trauma, right? When it comes up.
We have options.
Oh my gosh, we have options, right? Yeah. If you aren't sure what all the options are, just start thinking. They'll come up. We have a drawing on our homepage on our website you can look at called the Tree of Brokenness. Up in the top are those things we call isms, the dysfunctional behaviors that we use. Yeah. There's a lot of different ways we can go. And earlier in my life, I would have chose a different way than I choose now. One of my problems was I was always chasing down significance by trying to add to my balance sheet. That's not exactly the best behaviors when you get taken out of the road, the road that Jesus and God has laid out for us. What would you say at this point, right in the journey, What looks to be the toughest challenge now? Because both of us are sitting here, right? We're committed believers. Here we are, we're in the battle, we're in the midst, we're here, we're doing a podcast together on Embracing Brokenness Ministries. I can tell you that it was only 5 or 6 years ago, and I was involved in a career that I didn't think I'd be doing this, correct? Like, had ideas, but not exactly this. What does it look like for you now as you look ahead? Are you able to put words to what the next challenge is, or the next space that God wants to that thing?
No, I mean, I don't know. Where you mean you're talking about the arc of the healing journey?
Yeah.
No, I don't know what's next. I don't know what the next that will be.
Is that a problem, you think?
It is not for me.
Okay,
No,
good. In case
me.
anybody was wondering, no, it really isn't, is it? So that was a big time setup just to hear you
good.
say that.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. We don't know, folks. We don't know.
Yeah.
And I think if we did, if we had the whole story of life kind of arced in front of us, what would we do? We would kind of chase after either that or some way to change the story, right?
Yeah, and you can't manufacture.
No.
You can't manufacture the experience. You can't manufacture God is God is the one who orchestrates. He's the one. He's got the master plan, and he's the best opportunist.
Oh.
So
What do you mean?
When we were alluding to earlier, was this a spiritual attack? Yeah. Was this something else? I don't know. He doesn't care. He's going to like, you know what? I'm going to take advantage of whatever's going on right here.
That's right. That's right.
So the enemy can't win. I mean, even if he gets us all spun up, if we turn around and go back to the source, if we go back to God, and not choose a lot of these other things we were just talking about, then the outcome will be positive, no matter what you're dealing with. If you start going down the isms, you're going to have a crossroads. You're going to have an experience, and if you choose to soothe, self-soothe, medicate, whatever, you're going to end up in a worse spot. So we all have this, the life is in the balance. Like it's literally can be that traumatic. Life and death, marriage, not married.
Yeah.
Have a job, not have a job. Have your kids, not have your kids. There's so much that's hanging in the balance in these decisions.
Because what I think we're trying to get to is that these experiences in our lives always put us in a place where we can choose a number of options. But I liken it this way. One of my favorite quotes that Yogi Berra made was, "When you come to the fork in the road, take it." Right. So that's a good one. Now, what do I mean by that? And what did he mean by that? Okay. I don't think, especially as believers, that yes, there's wrong forks in some senses of the word, but if we choose an ism and we crash and burn, guess who's right there waiting at that fork? Again.
Yeah.
Like it's not as if we're abandoned if we take one fork or the other.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. We are not abandoned, and I'm a man sitting here who spent 20 years taking the wrong fork.
Yeah.
I mean, I at every possible opportunity, because I didn't understand what I was dealing with, I kept making the worst possible decisions because I didn't know that there was another way. Yeah, even as a believer, I felt so much shame. Even the fact that I even feel this way was to me shameful. That God isn't going to help me with this. I need to figure this out. Go back to I need to figure it out. I need to figure it out. Well, that's not going to get me anywhere. So I just keep taking the wrong left turn, and that's why I need this intensive healing season where I'm in right now. Yeah. So this isn't just me sitting here saying I always get it right. Mm-mm. Yeah. No. But to your point, God is a rescuer.
He is a rescuer.
He is a rescuer, and he will. You take the wrong turn, he'll meet you there. You take the right turn, he's going to meet you there.
Yeah, isn't that great? I mean, his primary attribute is love.
Yeah.
So, love, perfect love, casts out fear. Anytime we find ourselves fearful for any reason, and honestly, I think there's a piece of what you even brought out in this article. There's a fear base underneath it all, right? Because The enemy wants, the more fearful we get, the more reliant we become, I feel like, sometimes on ourselves to the answers or something else. We were talking off camera about ice cream. I could eat a half a gallon a night. I wouldn't like the results of that. I would feel so good about it for a while. I try to be a healthy eater. And you would pay the price, right? Now, that's a tamer example. We have potlucks at church and we eat like crazy. Feels okay, but it's not necessarily. And there are a lot of things we turn to. We served for years. Colleen served for years at a mission, a dozen years. And brokenness showed up in all kinds of ways, but we all know the ones that we call them uglyisms. They're alcoholism and drug addiction and all of the things. And I'm going to throw another one in, materialism. I feel like that was sort of a direction that I was headed. But there is healing available at every step of the way, but it requires submission. It requires you wanting to hear what God had to say. If we're on our own path, we rarely hear.
Yeah, and even to get to the point where you want to hear what God has to say, sometimes there's even a lot of debris that has to be cleared till you can get to that point because, as I mentioned, the 20-year journey of doing all the wrong decisions, I did not want to hear what God had to say because I was convinced that it was going to be condemning. I didn't have the best picture of what God was like, his heart for me, and what that response would be. Had I known what was waiting for me on the other side of yes, I would have said it, 20 years earlier. So if you're afraid of what God thinks of you, you don't know what he's like. If you're afraid of how he's going to react to something that you've done, you're not seeing the right picture because he is love and he is grace. Does he love sin? No. Does he, are there reasons why all these rules are in place? Yes, because it brings damage, harm to ourselves, our loved ones.
No doubt.
So to your point.
Yeah. Obedience, though, it is the road, and God and in the Bible, it's very clear that God calls us to obey. We will want to obey His word and His teaching and His promptings because we do love Him.
Yeah.
And we got to put the guardrails up.
Yeah.
We have the ranch, if you want to call it, and there's a fence around the ranch for a reason because when we step outside of His will or His word, there are consequences. In every instant, there are consequences. And what I've learned over the years is, as a believer, I've experienced that there's a couple ways it hurts even more as a believer because you get the consequences of reaping and sowing.
Yeah.
But you also get God's disciplining hand. There is judgment and discipline. Now, He's one of the most patient gods holy cow, more patient than I would have ever been. But I wouldn't want to test that patience very long because I did in the past. We won't get into that, but you can think for yourself, anybody. Yeah. Where were you out of His will and you watched Him try to woo you back and you just kept going?
Yeah.
And then you suffered the consequences. So it's a double whammy.
Yeah.
That's a double whammy, I think.
Yeah.
But that's not for the reason, right? We want to serve and we want to love Him. We want Him to be at the center of our decision-making process when we come to that fork in the road so that we can avoid that. But more importantly, He has this relational journey that we're on. And then there's ministry.
Yeah. Well, you were just reminding me, I've had warnings from God in the past, in the process of taking the wrong fork in the road. I've had instances where I've had actual warnings from God. If you continue down this path, this is what's going to happen. Yeah. And in my twisted view of what that meant and what He was like, I interpreted it in a different way, as if it already happened.
Wow.
It was a very fatalistic, terrible interpretation fueled by a complete misunderstanding of the Father's heart. And maybe that's a different conversation at some point down the road.
Probably, but I love the fact that we at least introduced that notion that we have to think about all the reasons we do certain things.
Oh, there's
and why, but
the motivations of the heart in them is a deep well. Yeah.
It's a deep well. But
Yeah.
but in the context of our conversation today, as we wrap things up, Answer the Door looked encouraging to you. It gave you hope.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It showed you the next thing.
Well, let's say, not only, if nothing else had happened, that encounter was hopeful because, there God is putting his finger on an area that he wants to address, and there's something tied to it that brings me hope. But my experience after that there was a shift in how little shame I felt.
Yeah.
From the moment I woke up the next morning, and it was a tangible difference, and I marinated in that goodness for a couple of months. And do I believe that there will never again be another area that he wants to put his finger on? And do I? No.
Of course.
Is that the end of any shame I'll ever encounter? No.
Not.
I don't believe that now we're fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's all, this guy's healed. But there was a change. There was an encounter, and there was change, and that's beautiful for me. I love it. But there's more to that story. Just in the, when I agreed to write this article and was praying about what to put in it, and I felt that this is what I needed to share.
Yeah.
As soon as I sent this article to you, it was as if all hell broke loose.
Yeah.
And for the listeners,
it probably did.
Yeah, it may have, because the enemy hates our testimony. He hates because, by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony,
Yes.
we overcome. But as soon as I sent this article to Steve, I was so harassed and bombarded. It was a week went by, and I texted you and said, "Don't publish it. It's all lies."
Yeah. Uh-oh. At that point, you should have absolutely known it was the right thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
it didn't make it feel any better.
Because that wasn't God whispering in your ear that it was lies.
No.
No,
But it just felt like there was just so much negativity, and the shame was trying. It was just a relentless amount of trying to make me believe that it didn't really happen.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Yeah. So there was opposition to this story being told, and but here we are. So
I'm going to, in your words, wrap this up by reading the last paragraph.
Yeah.
In what you wrote, which means that everybody has to go back and find it because you'll get reinforced by this. Michael said this: "Our job is to stay connected, stay grafted to the vine. Jesus is the vine, we are the branches. Our life and sustenance are drawn from that connection. Jesus already paid the price for that connection. Our responsibility is to keep reaching out and give him access to our hearts and to be available. He does all the rest, and what he does is miraculous."
Amen.
Amen. John 10:10, "I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." And that is the message for everyone today, folks. Thank you for coming on and doing this.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, and there'll be many, many more, I'm sure. So
it's a privilege.
Yes. And again, folks, go back, find the article. It's a great read. It's not long, but it's certainly packed full of truths. And in Michael's story, and like all our stories, we find ourselves at times where we just need to lay down our own desires and reach out and ask God to step into the picture and to answer the door.
Answer the door.
Answer the door, folks. Blessings to you all. We'll be back again and see you next time.
This was another episode of the Embracing Brokenness Podcast. For more information on Embracing Brokenness Ministries, or to subscribe to our blog, podcast, YouTube channel, or engage with us on social media, please visit our website at embracingbrokenness.org. Thanks for joining us.